It's always a little bit interesting with this microphone that sometimes it decides to turn on and work for me, and sometimes it doesn't. So, unfortunately, we had no sound to begin the episode here, but let's get started with, and for whatever reason, I had no comments coming in. Jimmy Thompson, Afterlife, Matt Boundy, Mark Watson, Wes Shaw. Let's get going, boys and girls. Let's get this going. Let's get this on the road. No, we're not starting over. You're just going to have to guess what I was talking about this whole time. No, we've got some rumors that we can go over. There's nothing concrete here. There's nothing set in stone, but let's get this going here. Let's get what Steve Bertrand from 360nitro.tv has put out there. We've got a couple of things to figure out first. All right. So, as we talked about on last week's show, there was some information put out there about a potential rebrand, about potentially some names changing. That Pinty's is definitely still in the mix, whether they're back, whether they're not. Shout out to John Fletcher in the chat, who had his final NASCAR Pinty Series start, at least that's rumored, final start in the 98 car at Delaware Speedway. Crew chief extraordinaire. Also, great episode with John Fletcher and Gary Clute on the Gary Clute podcast. So make sure you check it out. Got a plug for you, John, because you're tuning in right now. So rumors are always fun, right? And one of the things that we do on this show is we go, you should trust you, that's it. I don't know, man. We got the OSS series, though. Let's get the Fletch and the OSS. You got the similar cars. We'll have you for a race, John. But glad to have you guys here for episode 66 of the show. We're getting to the point of the off season where the stuff is going to start coming out. Names are going to be coming out as moving into the series, maybe moving out of the series, maybe moving places in the series. And we are here, of course, to break it down. Steve Bertrand of 360nitro.tv is back once again with more news. Now, again, unverified reports from the NASCAR Pinty Series, unverified from my own sources. There's a lot of stuff that I have heard here that is in this report. However, we have to wait for the official word of NASCAR before we confirm this as legit. So, again, there you go, John Fletcher in for a Ontario Sportsman Series event. We'll get you a car. I'm sure Kevin Trevelyan's got friggin' 1,000 of them, so we'll get you in, John. But there was, of course, some of these rumors that we were talking about last week, and always got to plug, my man. Afterlife, always got to plug for Ontario Sportsman Series. If you guys don't remember it, NASCAR Super Series had its own little division underneath it, which was the Sportsman division. It's still living on. Would be great as a companion for the Pinty Series, but by all accounts, they're not racing as much as they used to in Ontario. They're not doing 90% races in Ontario anymore, so it's a little bit difficult to plan that. But either way, the name that still seems to be out there for the CEO or the GM, whatever the role they're going to be giving, is Alain Labrosse. If you're not familiar with Alain, he is a Canadian Motorsport Hall of Famer coming in to be the main man at the NASCAR Pinty Series. He is from Quebec, so hopefully he can bring some of that enthusiasm for the sponsors that they get out there to Ontario. That would be phenomenal. And I'm hoping that is the goal. I would expect by having somebody that is so good at getting partnerships, obviously we can't think about Alain without thinking about Tony Spiteri, who's moved on from the series, and it would appear that they are still going to be involved. Tony, of course, if you're aware, is part of, or not part of, he is the main man at Freshstone Brands. And Detective Wes, who I can rely on quite heavily in our Facebook group, Detective Wes was at it again and was able to pull out all the stops here and get this piece of information. So Ohsweken Speedway, the Freshstone Dirt Classic is returning. However, What is interesting about this right now, Thursday in July at Ohsweken Speedway, no longer a Monday event. No longer a Monday event, no longer a two race event, but still has the confirmation of the Freshstone brand and the Dirt Classic. Now, this I like. I like this move. I think having it on a Thursday is actually a very good decision because it leads right into the weekend, and a lot more people, I think, are inclined to take a Thursday, Friday off than would be taking a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off or having to do something of the sort. Tim Gerald, how are you? So mark your calendars for a NASCAR return. This is from the Ohsweken Banquet, so I would expect that this would be legit. This is what's going to be great about this is that, you know, you're fixing it. It's in a different time. Now, with it being the second week of July, that pretty well does confirm that what a lot of us expected. Now, it would require, I think, a week later for the race at the Grand Prix of Toronto to be part of this. If we go and say, let's go to the Honda Grand Prix of Toronto, you're going to see one thing that is a little bit different this year. So this past year, it was July 14th to 16th. However, that is not the race weekend for this year. If we go to the IndyCar website, the 2024, now whether they're going to have the 2024 schedule up or not, we'll see here. But the 2024 schedule has Toronto July 21st. Now, why is that a problem? Well, that coincides with our Western swing. So automatically, now we're going to have Ohsweken ahead of Toronto. But if it was going to happen, that would only have a week between those two races. I don't think it's going to happen that way. Now, could they be trying to fit Toronto in and move some of the Western events? I could definitely see them doing that. Whether or not that's legitimate, it's really hard to say. The problem is when you get to a situation where you've already signed contracts, it's really difficult to move those contracts, especially those race dates, if they're already in place. Now, the one bonus that we have right now is that the schedule, there is no Toronto, as John Fletcher is stating here. No Toronto is what I have heard this whole time. Obviously, we hear we have to wait for the official word from NASCAR. John Fletcher is part of the series as a crew chief. He's confirming it right now. Is this a big loss for the series? Yes. Very big. Why? I think anybody that's been there for the last couple of years has seen that the Free Friday is working. There was a big period of time when they first started the Free Fridays. Now, mind you, it wasn't the Pinty race wasn't always on the Free Friday. They were part of it, but the race wasn't as part of it. When I first was going to the Free Friday, Pinty Series was back, I want to say 2017, 2018. No one was there. Hardly anybody stuck around to the end of the Friday, and there really wasn't much incentive for people to stay. The last couple of years, the attendance has been amazing. People sticking around for that race. Great video of Alex Tagliani with his daughter watching him come through and get the race victory, and the crowd is great for that finish. Whether or not they could make any sort of change to the schedule, it wouldn't have probably mattered because the week it was adjusted. You can't. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to remember is that the Pinty Series is not putting on the Toronto Grand Prix. They're kind of added to it. It's put on by a different promotion. What they do is what they do. It's not NASCAR Pinty Series being able to make the decisions there. So if it interferes with their schedule, it interferes with their schedule. Now, is that a big loss? It is. Toronto is a huge market for the NASCAR Pinty Series, for a lot of the Ontario teams, for a lot of those businesses. It's a good weekend to do some good marketing. Unfortunately, for names like Gary Clute, for names like Larry Jackson, Sam Fellows, this is one of their premier weekends that they get to showcase to their partners, especially if they're local. So that's a big loss. It definitely is. In terms of confirming other stuff on the schedule, let's take a look at what Steve Bertrand has said. So Steve Bertrand, of course, he came out and he said that the article, once again, is that legitimately, though, is that the only place the flyer was seen? Curious. As far as I know, the flyer's only been published in that article or in that program at the Oshweekend Banquet. Whether or not there's going to be changes to that, hard to say, right? I'm always wary of publications that are put out prior to the actual official announcement, because as we know, stuff can change at any time. But if that's the call that they're going to go with the Thursday, I think that's much better, personally, over a Monday race. If we go back to our article from 360 Nitro, they go through and say, although the calendar is on the edge of going out, I have some dates for some 2024 events. As a result, the 2024 is expected to be presented. Now, this was prior to last Wednesday, when it was originally thought that the schedule was going to come out. It did not come out. Now the belief is that it is going to come out this week, but again, that's just rumors. I cannot confirm. I have not heard from anybody directly within the series that is coming out this week, because again, it can always be delayed. But once again, it says during the long weekend, it is going back to Mosport to start the season. Then the series is expected to be transported to Autodrome Chaudière, then the Maritimes in June, with events at Newfoundland and the long-awaited return of one of the classics of the NASCAR Pinty Series, Antigonish. Yes, the return of Riverside has long been speculated. It was long believed last year that it was supposed to be part of the NASCAR Pinty Series schedule. When they originally had put up the graphic for the schedule at the end of their promo video, they had Antigonish and Granby on it. But unfortunately, that did not end up happening. So we'll have to see what the race is and what the length is too. I believe the races that we did go out there, they were 300 laps, and normally a very, very fun race. But it has been a while. In fact, it's been quite a while since the NASCAR Pinty Series went out there. And I'm going to go out and say that, we're talking almost 10 years. Not 10 years, 8 years. 2017, the last time we were out there. Which it is kind of crazy when you think about it, that we're going to have to go all the way back to 2017 for the bumper-to-bumper 300 at Antigonish. It is quite sad that it took that long for us to get back. 2017, we've got 2024. There's a good bit, maybe it's like 6 years. I don't know. I don't do this job for math, man. No, they did not go there in 2019. 2017, last time that we went to Antigonish, which is sad. It's one of the ones that we've interviewed a lot of people on our podcast, and most of the drivers, this was the track that they want to go back to, and it is highly beloved. I mean, it's been referred to as the Little Bristol, for the Bristol for Canada, and we're at that point right now that if we can go out there and put on a show once again, it would be very welcomed. You know what? I'm guessing the site that I did go to is incorrect. No, they did go there in 2019. You are correct. Afterlife. For whatever reason, that site was incorrect. So Riverside last time in... Now this is interesting too, though. The last time that it was on our schedule, August. So we're moving it from August to June. I'm hopeful that that means we won't have a bunch of issues with weather. And it's, it's always a risk. The question is, based off of Steve's article here, is that it does state that they're going to be back-to-back, essentially, that they're going to be 2 races in a row. And I don't know about that. That's pretty rough on the teams, especially if there's a rain date. That would be very, very tough to be out there. I mean, it's the same issue if you go out west, but, I mean, it especially when you're going out there to Newfoundland, I would hope that there is... I would hope that there's some... I don't know. For this, I kind of feel we might want to be... I feel like there's a lot of risk with having 2 of them. Obviously, it's probably the best situation is to do it that way. But I think we can all go out and state that Riverside is it's been a rumor for a while. And the fact that it wasn't on the schedule for our COVID years, it was a natural return. Now, the problem is the amount of cars that we would get out there. So typically what we would have... So 2019, we had a solid year in terms of car counts. 19 to 20 was the median. But Antigonish, we saw 14. That's a tough field. That's a very tough field. And it's not that we don't love and appreciate the competitors that go out there, but that's a very, very tough situation. And we hopefully don't have that. It does look like it was it does look like it was July 12th to 15th for the IWK 250. So that was last year. Whether or not it's going to be this year, I couldn't tell you. So the IWK would be down there. I think that that's what you do, right? You have the IWK 250 along with the Pinty series event, but you can only do what you can do. So like I said, last time we were there in 2019, it was Jason Hathaway that won the event, and I could definitely see him coming down there. You had a car that was out after 3 laps, and it's tough. I don't know what the field would look like. July 20th, IWK. Eastern Road Trip, no brakes. Yeah, that's a tough one. Very tough. Now, it was 300 laps the last time that we did race here. Hathaway, he only led 16. This was when we had the contact between he and Lacroix, which was a great finish. It always is, really, at Riverside. But, again, 13 cars, that's really tough for the fans. That's really tough for the teams. I look at this, and we had Jason Hathaway, DJ Kennington, Tag, LP, Alex LeBay, Kevin Lacroix, Andrew Ranger, Mark Dilley, Donald Chisholm, Marc-Antoine Cameron, Brandon White, rest in peace, Brett Taylor, Donald Teague, and Kerry Mix. So the field would have changed dramatically since the last time that we raced there in 2019. I mean, you think about it, we're talking a solid amount of years with names like Sam Fellows coming in, with Trayton Lapsevich, with Kyle Steckley, with obviously Raphael Lessard being part of the series. You have the two from Atlantic Canada, Josh Collins and Brandon McFarland. And where you would have names going in for Newfoundland, you would probably have some names come in for Riverside. To me, I mean, you've got to get Cole Butcher. Cole or Jarrett Butcher to be part of this. Austin McDonald to be part of this. You've got to get the hometown names. And especially for Riverside, we really need to have a field of up to 20. Boast it back up. Now, I would have to go back and check. We're going to go back and we're going to see here, back to how many races we've done here. So 2018, we had 18. In 2017, we had 15. In 2016, we had 16. In 2015, we had 16. 2014, we had 16. So what's the pattern here? It's 17 in 2013. We had 20 in 2012. So we're going quite a ways back. 2011, we had 19. So far, we've only had 1 year where it's had 20 cars. 17, we had... 2010, we had 17. 2009, we had 19. So we're seeing the median here is about 16 to 19. So that would be probably pretty ideal. 2008, we had 23. Wow. And then 2007, we had 20. So 23 being the max, that could very well be doable, especially with a large chunk of the field coming from Quebec. So it's not as far for them. They're a little bit closer than the teams in Ontario. So potentially, and I mean, some of these names, if I go back to this, we're talking 2008 here. Well, that's quite a ways away. That we had 23. Look at the names, though. Don Thompson Jr., J.R. Fitzpatrick. J.R. Fitzpatrick would be somebody that we definitely would need to get back for this event. Ronnie Beauchamp Jr., Mark Dilley, Dave Whitlock, Andrew Ranger, Brad Graham, Doug Brown, Pete Gibbons, Pete Shepard, Jason Hathaway, Todd Nichols, Scott Steckley, Donald Chisholm, Brian Cathcart, Anthony Simone, John Gaunt, Kent Noon, Jason White, Jeff Lapsevich, DJ Kennington, Derek Lynch, and Kerry Mix. So the one thing that you'll notice about that is the field very different back in 2008. Lots more Ontario than there was Quebec. In fact, Andrew Ranger was the only Quebec driver in 2008 that raced in this series at the amazing Riverside Speedway. Now, Donald Teague, I think we could expect to be participating as this. Donald, of course, the owner of Riverside, the operator. But to go from 23 in 2008 to 14 in 2019, obviously the field is in better shape, I think, than we were. Because you've got names like Glenn Stiers, names like Thomas Neveu, like Donald Teague, that could definitely be a part of the race out there that we didn't see back in 2008. Now, it's not the only thing that has been confirmed through, or at least thought to have been confirmed through 360 Nitro as they continue on here. All This Beautiful World will move for their only ordeal on the side of clay of Ohsweken Speedway before their traditional journey out west to Saskatoon and Edmonton. Rather exhausting end of the season as Trois Rivières, Delaware, ICAR will all be in August. Then it's Mosport again and Autodrome Montmagny. However, it says for now only a few dates are available, but the calendar is 90% built and there are only a few details left to do and everything will be formalized in a few days. Although some dates are not confirmed, still the track should look a bit like this. For me, the Toronto Indy is a great loss for this series. Hopefully the two groups succeed in finding a way that the event returns to the calendar. The only problem is during that Toronto weekend, the series is in Saskatoon in Western Canada. So let's wait. So that's Steve Bertrand of 360nitro.tv. I mean, there's some question marks here. Obviously, as it states here, that there is some open dates. Now, whether or not the series is going to continue at 14 races is also a very big question mark. I've had conversations with people within the series that would rather it go back down to 12 races. We have people that want to go in. Hell, there's some team owners that want 20 races. There's some people that would rather see it at 15. The problem is that we're running out of tracks here because there's some tracks not mentioned on this schedule right now that perhaps are in confirmation territory that we need to figure out whether or not they'll be on the series schedule, but just later. So far, what this confirms is a lot of the stuff that I've heard. Obviously, there's some big losses here. Toronto being probably the biggest. The reality of that market and the amount of people that visit the racetrack during the IndyCar weekend is quite massive. However, the problem that I have with the Indy is that it is the Indy. It's not the NASCAR Pinty Series headliner. And unfortunately, you're never going to get an opportunity for the Pinty Series to be the headliner during the Indy weekend unless they were to do their own thing. I don't expect that we would see that at any point, which sucks. Obviously, I would love it if we would be able to find our own chance of having a race in Toronto. The reality is, though, it is very difficult to put on events. You have to have partnerships. You have to have money coming into it, and you have to, of course, have a fan base. The question mark, I think, lies a lot in what dates are we going to get? Are there going to be any double headers? Sutherland typically is a double header. It's 2 races, 125 laps each. Would they do the same thing? Would they do Montmagny as 2 races? Would they? It's the season finale though, so would they do a 300 lapper at Montmagny? Would they do 250? I would be okay with a 250, especially that's what we would get at Delaware. CTMP, no questions. Those are all going to be the same. So May, CTMP, June says Chaudière, Newfoundland and Riverside. I would expect June is those 3, July, Ohsweken, Edmonton, Saskatoon, DH, Ohsweken, GP3R. No, Ohsweken's a J. Yeah, there you go. Then Quebec to close. No idea, Wes. Because there's also Sunset in there. There's also Wishing, Jukasa. I don't know why we have to do tracks once other than CTMP. Like I would like to see maybe a second race at Riverside. If you're going down there, you might as well, or Delaware even. I think Delaware's well deserving of a second event. especially considering it's the home where this series was built, right? So, if there's room, you could do it the week before the NASCAR Pinty Series opener at Mossport. I will say I don't myself as a race fan. I particularly don't want it to open on a road course. I understand why we do it that weekend. It is a big race weekend. The problem is that is also a very big weekend for a lot of other racetracks. Jakarta twice in 2019, we were spoiled that year. And that's what I'm getting to Afterlife is the sadness of, well, we have Jakarta sitting there. There is always room before CTM PMA or in between CTM and the championship. That's where my thinking is, Wes, is that why I'm thinking that, because the key thing that Steve says in his article here, okay, is he says it right here. He says, although some dates are still not confirmed, okay, he says it's also the calendar is 90% built with few dates are available. So for somebody that is providing the rumors of such, you would expect that they wouldn't confirm that there's more dates available. The big question marks are going to be fulfilled. NASCAR will go out there. They will have a schedule release. They will put their press releases out. There will be confirmations coming. We obviously don't know. I would prefer the series to put out teasers because it builds the hype, right? Instead of it being kind of silent on their end, I think building hype, hey, the schedule is coming out, it gets people kind of pumped up for the following year. With this stuff that has leaked already, it is really difficult to get people excited because all of a sudden people just think negatively. Oh, this is going to be awful. Oh, this sucks. But you're not getting the true story, right? We're not getting what's behind these decisions. We're not getting why these decisions are made, or if these decisions were even made by NASCAR. That's the easiest person to blame, is the people at NASCAR. It is so easy to just go, oh, well, they just did this and da 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 da. Well, we don't know that. You don't know that. Unless you're in the room making the negotiations, you have no idea what is taking place. So you can't go out and exclaim that this is what they're doing, because they haven't come out and actually said this is what we're doing. We are getting this from a reporter in Quebec, which we have seen before, that media has been wrong. Last year, there was media reports that Granby was on the schedule. It was signed. It was happening. And it did not happen. So while people like to think that they have all the details and they have all the truths, it can come down to last minute details, and all of a sudden an event could be off. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the reason why the schedule wasn't released when people expected it to come out. And again, NASCAR never said they were going to release it. People jumped the gun and thought, oh, well, that's coming out. We had heard, people had suggested that that's when it was going to come out. However, NASCAR didn't come out and say that. We see it a lot for the Cup Series, that there are people who break news. There are people like the Bob Pockrases, the Jeff Glucks, that they release details, that they pass on this information. I've tried to be something like that, where you can pass on some information, but not spoil or reveal too much. The reality is, though, this series needs it. And I truly believe that. I think having a show like this, having people release details, having rumors, that's healthy for racing. You want the conversation to keep going all season long. The worst thing that you could do is put a schedule out and no one cares. That would be the worst possible thing. Well, the fact is, we've been talking about this since the season ended. So the more that we can do this, the more hype we build, more eyes on the series, maybe more interest in the series. Afterlife says, too bad there wasn't an oval track at Mossport to open that weekend. Don't make me cry, Afterlife. I know there are some people who desperately wanted to see that place bulldozed. I thought it had a lot of character. It was my track. I always went. It's tough. Afterlife, in my opinion, 2 race packages on the same weekend are very risky. Out west and out east because of distance. With the regional races on Ontario, there's a lot of contact. Teams have a lot of work to do fast. It's very true. I do think out west, and out east, it is still a very risky deal. It's the same when they were doing the double headers. Very risky. I like the fact that we do have those races at Mosport. Mosport is one of the tracks where you can be very lucky and come out of this race without any damage, or minimal damage. We've seen it get a little bit crazier in the last couple of years, but for the most part, racers do travel with a lot of respect. It's the same thing we thought about Ohsweken Speedway, that it was going to be a complete mess. i.e. Ohsweken, where rain saved the day for reconstruction of cars. Absolutely. But I think that's one of the reasons why we are not back for 2 races at Ohsweken Speedway. It's difficult on the race teams. And Tim, what I would say is I'd be very concerned if the races out west and the races out in Atlantic Canada are the same weekend or in the same set of days, because if one gets rain delayed, then it all of a sudden cuts that period of time. And we'll see, honestly, how this schedule comes out. When it comes out, there's going to be people that like it, people that don't like it. I think we can obviously state that there's a lot of concern from people in Ontario about their part of the series. It has been a Quebec-driven series for many years now. There's no debating that. The large majority of the partners that come into the series have come from Quebec. A lot of the competitors are from Quebec that have partners in Quebec. So having the finale in Quebec would make a lot of sense. This year, however, would it have made sense to have Trayton Lapsevich celebrating a championship in front of a Quebec crowd? Right? It's kind of a hit and miss. It brings back the age-old adage of the Quebec versus Ontario battle. The reality of this series is it needs Quebec. Without Quebec, the series is struggling. And I hear it a lot from people that are not interested in it because it's got too many drivers from Quebec. It's got too many of this. It's becoming a Quebec series. If you haven't been tuning in, it's been a very heavily influenced series by Quebec for many years now. So to give some respect to those drivers and those partners that show up, I mean, they travel. I don't know if that's vice versa. I really don't know if Ontario fans would travel all the way to Montmagny for the finale. I don't. But you could see a large contingent of Quebec fans that were coming down to Delaware. Afterlife, for real, that St. Hubert's chicken is effing awesome. Bill Murray says, sad that Sunset doesn't appear on the schedule. Very disappointing. But again, Bill, we don't know if there's discussions still happening. They haven't mentioned it here in this article. The other side of it that we have to consider is whether the track themselves took themselves off the schedule. Now, I have no insider knowledge if that's the truth or not, but it definitely is a disappointment for me as well. I mean, that's my home track. That's my track that I love the most. And to not have them there would be very, very sad considering they've been on our schedule for so long. Now, it could be very well, it simply could be that they're not hosting the season opener anymore and they're just later in the schedule. That's very possible. But it's definitely possible that stuff can change. Give Sam Fellows a Mary Brown's chicken sponsorship and we'll talk. Why Sam Fellows, man? Does Sam Fellows seem like the guy that eats Mary Brown's? I'd be very, very interested if he was, because that would be quite funny. I've already said to many people that I think Sam Fellows needs some sort of a hair product or a like hair cutters sponsorship, because the guy's got the best hair in the business, just like his dad did. So I'd say Sam's definitely got something there. But yeah, so I mean, hopefully by this time next week we will have the confirmations. We'll hear from the series. That's a big thing. I really want to hear from Alain Labrosse. I really want to hear what his plans are for this series. I want to hear what their opinions are, especially what he plans to do for everybody. And that's the big thing, is there needs to be, everybody needs assistance right now. Quebec drivers, I would say, probably don't need as much assistance, but our Western Series competitors, really, we need to get more of those guys and gals into the series running at West. We've got people in Atlantic Canada, but we do not have a big enough contingent, I believe, in Western Canada. Right now, Chantal Kalika, Jamie Krizik, Matt Shirley. They're your three. They've been the only three competitors. Brett Taylor, obviously, Jason White, long time, were parts of the series. They have not been back since they had left the series. I don't have any indication that Jason is going to come back or that Brett would come back. Hopefully. Noel Dowler was a part of this series for quite a bit of time. Obviously, Todd Nickel we saw earlier. It is tough. It is tough that we need to find ways to be able to get competitors into these events, get competitors that can afford to be part of the series. While we did have a great year in terms of different drivers coming in, we have to look at where the majority are coming from and how many races they're participating in. 1 or 2 races is different. If you can get competitors to do 5, 6, 7, then we're talking. But 1 to 3, that's okay. We have people that will only do races in Ontario, that will only do races in Quebec, that will only do races in the Maritimes, that will only do races out west. So the big question is, how are we able to get people to be able to do the entire championship? That's the big question. And then on top of that is, where are our competitors from last year going to go? There is rumors galore about who is back, who isn't back, people switching teams, and there is some big names switching teams from the way it sounds. So Tim sends me Tim Gerald, who's in this chat, sends me a photo. And if he wasn't meant to have some sort of a contract for a hair company or some sort of hair product, I mean, look at this guy. He's perfect. Now, when you look at that afterlife, I don't know if we look at that and we think fried chicken. I'm just saying, I don't think we think of Mary Brown's. I don't know if I see it, but he's got the look. I'm telling you guys, he's definitely got it. His hair's been a little bit longer since that picture, but shrimp and champagne. That's right, baby. Thanks, Tim, for passing that along. I appreciate that. But again, we have those question marks out there about, I've said this before. You can pair competitors, like obviously for me, I definitely think Trayton Lapsevich with some sort of iRacing deal, whether it's through iRacing itself or partnering with D-Box, which we've seen him do that with these giant sim rigs. He's a perfect person to represent that brand, snowboarding. He's big into snowboarding, but also he's a business student. So businesses would definitely be something that, I think he could learn from. He's learning how to do marketing. He's learning how to grow his brand. But the big question mark is, we know Trayton Lapsovich is going to go down and run the Snowflake, actually he's going to run the Snowball, I believe, this year, the Snowball Derby. And Kyle Steckley is going to run the Snowflake. I expect we'd see Glenn Steyer's back out there this year. These guys are going out there and they're going to run some races out down south. We got to get them back in our series too, though. There's definitely a need to have those big future names, the Andrew Rangers of the future. Got to throw a shout out to Mr. Andrew Ranger today. The man himself, the Power Ranger. Now, I feel like he's been in our series for ever. But you go back to 2007, it was his debut in the series, full-time at least. And our boy celebrates a birthday today. So happy birthday to our man Andrew Ranger for Paille Racing. Afterlife has a great point. Says, well, I guess my point is the Newfoundland boys have wing in it. Tags has Saint Hubert. There's regional chicken places in Canada that love racing. You know what? I can't disagree with you there. Chicken's big money, but you have to remember, too, the fact that they got Saint Hubert on the car and they got winging it on the car when we had Pinty's as a sponsor was actually quite impressive. I didn't think that would have been possible, but yeah, it is. You know, I would say Swiss Chalet. A lot of people aren't big fans of Swiss Chalet, but again, you want something that's really recognizable. Brands on race cars that people know is, in my opinion, the way to go. And when we went to Quebec, Saint Hubert is everywhere. Very noticeable. And that's what I like about having those types of sponsorships. Paille is everywhere. There is so much that you could definitely have in terms of brands on these race cars that match the personalities of the drivers. I mean, next year will really be a very interesting year because we don't know where everybody is going to be. Trying to be a little more open with that. I'm trying to get people to open up and talk about their plans and be okay with it coming out that there's question marks. I think, again, you take the J-Ski model. I don't know if there's a lot of NASCAR fans that don't know who J-Ski is anymore because they kind of started the revolution of sorts of getting people to talk and getting rumors out there and putting together the rosters for the following year. And that's with a lot of speculation, a lot of talk, and a lot of interactions. And fans want that. I don't think you can expect to be quiet anymore. It just isn't a reality. People are on their phones. They're on social media all the time. So get out ahead of it. Say we're going to have our scheduled release. There's intention as well. Do you want to just spoil it for the sake of spoiling it, or do you want to try and drum up interest? And I think that there are people that do it for views. There are people that do it for attention. But there's other people that genuinely want to bring people into the series. There's a lot of question marks that hopefully we can answer by the end of this week. Maybe there'll be some stuff revealed that we weren't aware of. And I think there will be. I think there's always situations where stuff needs to be signed and they need to get confirmation before they can announce stuff. And again, we are just guessing that this is when it's going to be released. Hell, it could be next week. It could be the week after. What it really does need to be is the earliest. It needs to be basically when they announce the ARCA Menard schedules when they announce. The fact that we wait this long when we have less time for our racing season, it kind of sucks. And I would hope that we can continue to work at this so that the Cup schedule comes out, Xfinity Trucks comes out, then ARCA, put us right at the beginning. I don't know why we have to wait until the other series do it. Let's just get our stuff out there and go. We've got to treat our fan base and our series like it's its own thing, not part of ARCA, not part of the NASCAR umbrella. It needs to be treated as its own thing. I think for fans, that's what they look forward to. And it's never going to get to the point of a Cup Series, but for us in Canada, it can be something. We just got to keep working at it. I want to throw out a special shout out before we wrap up this week, because there is a milestone event that's happening tomorrow here on the channel. And if you guys haven't been a part of the G-Force family for a long time, you will know, you may not know, that this operation is put together by the amazing group of well-known personalities and a wizard that have put themselves together to create probably the best valued motorsports content in all of Canada here at G-Force TV. And with Spencer Mullen, the Wiz, with Glenn Stiers, with Greg Kalman, with Adam Ross and Clinton Jeffrey, you have the team of G-Force TV. You have camera crew, you have behind the scenes crew, you have a team that is committed and puts together an amazing product that has amassed over 17,000 subscribers. Lots of dirt racing action out at Ashwegan Speedway weekly. They've covered Sunset Speedway. They've covered Peterborough Speedway, Delaware Speedway, Sauble. They've been all across. They've been to Flamborough. I don't think they've done Grand Bend, and I don't think they've done Full Throttle. But the folks at G-Force TV have had a show that's been around, and it celebrates its 200th episode tomorrow. Race Rivals Race Chat with Clinton and Adam celebrates 200 episodes. And as somebody that's part of the G-Force Racing team, I cannot thank them enough for bringing me on, and I wish them all the biggest success. They've done me such a service by giving me an opportunity to talk about the series that I love here on their channel. They are huge mentors of mine, and I have learned so much in such a short amount of time just by interacting with them. I've learned from Spencer. I haven't gotten to know Greg and Glenn as much, but I can honestly say that I am so privileged to be a part of this network, and I am so incredibly proud of them for 200 episodes. We know that they've got 200 more in them easily. We know that we want to see more of their bickering back and forth. It is a highlight for me on Tuesdays, always seeing who they're bringing on to the show. And they do it with humor, with wit, but also the seriousness that racing deserves. So congratulations to the bosses, and congratulations to the entire team. 200 episodes of Race Rivals Race Chat. But this has been episode 66 of the Power Hour. We will catch you all next week. Hopefully we'll be breaking down the actual confirmed schedule and some of the confirmed news. We'll catch you then here on G-Force TV.